Hello everyone, welcome to another review. This time it will be for Diablo 2 Resurrected. Since Diablo 4 is dropping in early June, I wanted to replay the older Diablo games. It's been a really long time since I created a character in Diablo 2, and with Resurrected out, I thought this would be the best time. Now, I didn't go too deep into the endgame or even other difficulties, I just played a bit of Nightmare, but that was it. This will be a very short review on the remaster itself, what changed, what didn't change, how has Diablo 2 aged overall in terms of its progression systems and combat. I played Paladin with Holy Fire and later I switched to Blessed Hammer, and that accompanied me throughout the 5 acts that Diablo 2 has to offer on normal. I enjoyed my time with Diablo 2, it has been more than 2 decades since its initial release, and although I do have some grievances with the combat in some aspects, I think this remaster is the best way to experience Diablo 2 in modern age, and it kinda still holds up in most of the system to today modern standards. Story. Let's speak a bit on the sections. For story, I don't want to speak too much about Diablo 2 story, but I did replay it more due to a lore recap that I'm doing and I want to revisit the story to prepare for Diablo 4, you know? I love Dark Tales, and Diablo is up there when it comes to a really good dark world building and tone. The summarized version of Diablo's 2 story is basically that Diablo managed to take over Leoric's son, Aiden's body, after he defeated him in Diablo 1 ending, and Diablo starts to roam Sanctuary looking for his imprisoned brothers, Mephisto and Baal, the other primevals. So they are eventually freed with the help of Diablo and Marius, but eventually all are taken out again by the player. In the end, Baal tries to corrupt the rolled stun but fails as the player strikes him down, and then Tyrael, the angel, sacrifices basically 10 years of his time and basically destroys the corrupted rolled stun, creating a crater in Mount Ariat. That's then followed up in Diablo 3. The plot is very simple, yet the remade cutscenes and cinematics for the game are so well done that they feel unreal. The tension, the horror they provoke whenever Diablo, Baal or Mephisto are on the screen are very real. Honestly, in terms of quality, I would say they are on par with Diablo 4 cinematic cutscenes that we saw on the beta. They are truly terrifying and they set the tone remarkably well. In terms of combat and new features, let's start with the new features. Diablo 2 Resurrected brings in much requested quality of life improvements, amongst other things. One of them is the shared stash tabs, which means that players will be able to freely exchange items between their characters without any hassle whatsoever. Back in the day, players had to create a whole new character that would work as a mule, basically, where you just store items in there, which is crazy. When talking about stash improvements coming to Diablo 2 Resurrected, it is impossible not to also mention the increased stash sizes. This was a major issue in the original game. Players were forced to go through countless hoops just to keep their items because the dedicated stashes and inventory size were simply too small to accommodate for the sheer amount of loot they could amass throughout their playthroughs. But me personally, if I would have to point out a feature that I couldn't do without, it would be the automatic pickup of gold and specific items. When Diablo 2 first came out in 2000, though the automated picking up of loot and gold wasn't on anyone's mind, first of all, it was more difficult to implement back then. Secondly, it didn't seem to affect the enjoyment of the game too much, so it was left untouched. If you are coming back to Diablo 2 though, rest easy knowing you won't have to click through thousands of gold drops, they will just be automatically picked up. Another big feature, although it doesn't really matter much for me, but needs to be mentioned, is cross progression. Players will be able to carry their save over to any platform they choose to play the game on, making Diablo 2 more accessible than ever. Lastly, a very cool thing is that Diablo 2 Resurrected not only won't replace the original game, but it will also let fans seamlessly switch between the old 2D version and the remastered one with the one click of a button, which means that even if you want to feel that old school nostalgia, you just hit a key and bam, you are back in 2000 playing the original Diablo 2. The new 3D graphics are truly breathtaking, so for me, I wouldn't switch back. Combat wise, the game didn't change much. Yes, there is an improved frame rate that makes the game incredibly smooth, but aside from improvements to the original design of the visual effects, of spells and other special attacks, also some remastered audio effects, the combat will feel exactly the same as it felt back then. You still can only use 2 skills at the same time. If you want to use more, you'll need to hit a specific key to map a new skill and use it. It's the one thing I really dislike about Diablo 2 that I mentioned on my intro. It was okay back then, but with new RPG improvements that we have seen in Path of Exile, for example, Diablo 2 lags behind, and it hasn't aged well in this regard. It's overall very clunky, in my opinion. Hit detection and feedback though feel as good as ever, and combat in general is buttery smooth due to all of the improvements I spoke before, visual and otherwise. For progression systems and level design, Diablo 2 is very unique in its progression systems, at least compared to what Diablo 3 and Diablo 4 have nowadays. One of the things I really like about it is the rune systems, and I would like to have seen a revamped version of it in Diablo 3, but that wasn't the case. Luckily, we'll probably see it in Diablo 4, as the devs have confirmed runes will return. How they will return, we don't know. The simple act of grinding and farming the runes to then create unique items with the fixes that will alter your build completely is very fun. The experimentation phase and sorting out different runes on a gear piece to test which item you'll get is super interesting and rewarding as well. Even though all the combinations are known nowadays, and I knew which item and runes I needed to build a good gear piece for my paladin, it doesn't detract from the fact that it's a very rewarding and fulfilling system. Very unique too. Aside from the rune system, it's pretty much ARPG 101, I won't go too deep into it, just carefully plan your character, spend attribute points, choose which skills you want to level up, and that's it. Finally, to touch a bit on the level design, although I already mentioned it on the new feature setting, I love all the different acts levels, especially Act 5 and its icy plains and frozen tundras. The graphical overall really did a number on these, and they are just breathtaking. Feels like playing a completely new Diablo game and not the HD remaster. It's mind-blowing. Final thoughts and score. I didn't want to extend this review too much, so there you have it. My raw thoughts on Diablo 2 Resurrected. I'll probably return to my Paladin and complete at least the campaign on Nightmare and Hell to have a small taste of the endgame, but my goal, which was a lore recap and checking out the new features, has been attained. I believe this is worth a buy if you are a Diablo fan, of course, but even if you are an ARPG fan in general, even a casual one, I would say buy it. It's worth every penny. There's some clunkiness to the combat, but it's worth it, really. That's a wrap. I'll probably be releasing a video on the Paladin build I used, but that will only be posted once I finish Hell campaign and touch a bit on the endgame. Aside from that, expect early thoughts videos for Marvel Avengers, Persona 5 Strikers and Star Wars Jedi Survivor soon, which I'll be playing these 3 games. I'm already playing 2 of them right now, but I'll also be playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and I will release early thoughts videos on these, so be on the lookout for on the channel this week and next week. I'm also replaying the campaign of Diablo 3, and we'll delve into Season 28 endgame, so expect a build showcase for my wizards